Welcome to another edition of our video series on Build to Rent, where we discuss how brand new properties designed and built with tenants in mind can also make great investments for real estate investors like you. Today, we're going to take a look at brand new single family homes in cheap and cheerful Florida. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program, and this is our Build to Rent series. It's been a big part of what's been in the news and in the backstage talk at the meetings of developers and property folks that Build to Rent serves a great need. Now, if you haven't seen the initial panel that we did, that's probably the best place to start. Our guests today are on that panel, as well as some other great providers, and we talk about all the reasons that Build to Rent makes sense. This really is a follow-up to talk specifically about a market and about some properties that you're going to dig. So first, let's say hello to our friend Gillen. Hi, Gene. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having us again.
It's always good to have you guys. We'll meet your partner here, Wagner Nolasco. Hi, Wagner.
Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I've been looking forward to today because you guys are the dynamic duo. You've got a lot going on. And I think particularly with Build to Rent, folks need to get their mind around some of the advantages, but also what the properties are like. So, Gene, let's start here. You are a real estate broker, and you've been doing this a long time working with investors. So you don't list houses to sell to homeowners.
Yeah.
You work with investors, and as a broker, you can represent all kinds of stuff. I know you've sold, duplexes and fourplexes and single family homes, used homes, new homes. From your perspective as a real estate broker, take us through why Build to Rent could make some sense compared to buying, say, a 40-year-old house.
Well, first of all, as you know, Robert, it has to do with timing. So if you were back in 2010, 2011, 2012, you'd be buying from the bank. And that's what we did then. And those houses that I sold then were only like 5-6 years old. So they paid 70, 80,000. And today I'm selling them for 250,000. Well, that's not around anymore. Okay. It's not around. And they did have to do a lot of fix up, because even if they bought a house for 90 grand, they're going to put 20 grand in those days just to fix it up, because people were so angry that they had lost their houses. So that's what happened. So that was the time. This time is completely different. The reason why we do Build to Rent now is because it's less expensive than buying a used house. Now that sounds crazy to everybody, but it just happens to be that in the state of Florida. Remember that 350,000 people left New York, about 700,000 people left California. All these people I really have been taking, today I saw 3 different license plates going down the road. So people are moving here in droves, and everybody will tell you, if you're going to invest now, invest where people are moving. Not to say there's not going to be a play later on if you have money in places where people left, but right now the play is to buy and rent where people are moving. Now, why is it less expensive for us now to build these homes because and to sell them to you? Well, first of all, we have 9 builders that work for us. So we really cut out the middleman. There's no models, there's no staff they have to have. They have to do nothing. They don't have to do. We do it all for them. They build us a house, we sell it. We can sell it quicker, basically, than they can possibly get lots. But all our lots are infill lots. Why are we doing infill lots? Because if we do infill lots, we don't have to worry so much about 2 people renting on the same block. We try to even it out. Some of the places where we're doing this, it's 21,000 lots where we really stage them. The other thing is that when you buy and you build to rent, you have less repairs for about the first at least 5 years. Your roof does not have to be changed till 18 years. Your air conditioner should last about the same time. Very importantly, the 2020 building codes in Florida are some of the strictest we've ever had. So if I sold you a house that was built 20 years ago, your insurance might be $1,800 a year. But you buy this brand new house in 2020 codes with hurricane insurance, a deductible of $1,000. And for a $225,000 house, it's a little bit more than $500 a year. We're talking about something like $49 a month, and it takes care of everything. In the smaller houses that we have that are 169,000, it's about $250 a year, as opposed to about $1,500 if it was a used house. So all of those things make your cash flow better. The third thing that's happening right now are interest rates. Interest rates today are so low. So say you buy something and it's 3.5%. Remember back when in the 204, 205, 206, we were at 8%. It's almost like half, or it's less than half, almost a third. So if you're buying something for $100,000, simple, pretty easy, 3.5%, you're going to pay $3,500 a year. But if you went at 8%, you're going to pay $8,000 a year. So if ever you were going to make the move, this is the time. Also, we can say that the houses we're building are really in areas where people are moving. Now, I just gave you some people that are moving from different areas. There's more areas they're moving from. And why are they moving here? Why are we building there? Because there's jobs. Historically, Florida has had one of the lowest unemployment rates. Now, we really do believe we probably have one of those right now, but a lot of people that work in different areas here, that come from different places, even in the building industry, they take something here, they're on that job, then they go to the next one. So maybe they're like under the grid. So this is the time to buy a new house. Maybe in 3 years or 2 years, I'll say, whoops, now it's time to go back and buy old houses. But there's a time for everything, as it says in the Bible, and that's what we are following.
All right, love that. And that's actually some new perspective from what we talked about at the first panel. Wagner, you have a little different perspective because you're a guy that has bought some of those ugly duckling houses and gone in and fixed them up and made them beautiful. And that's a whole process. And of course, a lot of folks will buy those types of properties that the work's been done. Some people want to do that work. So now that you guys are really focusing on new builds, kind of contrast that for us and kind of your positioning on the whole build to rent space.
Well, thank you, Robert. Again, we did close to 400 flips, or if you want to call it, turnkey properties, and they did really well. As Gene very well said, we could pick them up at almost no money. So I actually bought it and remodeled houses for about $28,000. Today, those same condos are worth about $178,000, $180,000. Of course, when that market changed and our properties are being sold directly by the bank and the auctions, there's so much expensive, it's not worth it. It's better for us to look for very well-established neighborhoods that have all the economical drivers, has the employers, and build a new house. Of course, by doing everything direct and buying in bulk, we can save and we can almost build at cost. I think the secret that we have is comparing the existing and what has been remodeled to the new one. What are the advantages, in my personal opinion, as an investor? One is equity. You're going to be having something that it's brand new. Usually we can build below market value. So having equity day one for me was a great thing, right?
This seems obvious to you and I, but for folks that might not understand, why would you deliver a house to somebody at a price less than market? There's a really good answer to that.
What I will tell you, Robert, is very simple. If we buy in bulk, if it costs less to build, we have a profit margin that we have to keep to maintain our lives, our profitability. Everything else, why do we have to be greedy, right? Let's the investor make some money, because if they buy at a very good price and they do a good deal through the realty doctors, they can buy more. And if they buy more, they make more cash flow, they get more appreciation. It's a win-win. Gene has said, we don't have to have a model house. We don't have houses that are 10 different colors. We don't buy 3 different sets of appliances. So buying in bulk, it's called the economy of scale, allows us to actually bring those savings directly into the investor. And that's what we have done. So equity is number one. Number two, I would say, Robert, capital expenditure. As an investor, the amount that you actually spend to upkeep that existing property can actually make it or break the deal. So for example, if a water heater breaks down, probably your cash flow for 6 months have already been gone into replacing that water heater. As we all know, home warranties are kind of pricey, and I actually don't pay them on my existing properties. Some investors do. So capital expenditure on a brand new house for the first 5 years, you're probably not going to have any. And why do we actually focus on capital expenditure so much is because we actually created, Gene and I, what we call tenant resilient housing. So with all of our expertise as investors, as builders, developers, and the real estate background, we identify the most expensive items on a house. And those are roof, air conditioning, countertops, carpet, water heaters. So what did we do? We created a product that is above actually what a regular homeowner would get by having commercial or professional water heaters. So we don't use regular residential water heaters. We use a buffed up one so it can last you longer as far as the tenant resilient process is concerned. We don't use Formica, we use granite, right? We don't use regular appliances. We use stainless steel, top of the line appliances. We use hardwood cabinets. We use either tile flooring or waterproof vinyl flooring. So that will give you a longer lasting. And actually now we went above and beyond. We're doing double pane glass. We're putting blinds. We're putting ceiling fans, LED lighting. Why? Our tenants in average stay on the house for about 40 months. And that brings me right into the third thing, which is tenant retention. If you have a very large turnover of tenants, that's going to cost you more because every tenant that leaves, you have to probably touch up the paint and clean the house. And having a good tenant that pays on time, that has amazing credit, and you're satisfied with that tenant, that's why tenant retention for us is about 40 months. On a new house, a tenant tends to stay for about 40 months. And that's amazing. So the combination of all three, and I can say more good things about build to rent, but I think those three are the major ones that I would probably resume on. That's going to increase your cash flow. That's going to diminish your capital expenditure. And I love cash flow, and I love equity, and I love saving money and make more money. Actually, this month, Gene and I were getting new cars. And we're very glad that we are, because who is paying for my car is my tenants. So unfortunately, I can't make a license plate saying, my car is being paid by my tenant, but it's such a great pleasure to have that financial freedom from all the cash flow that those houses are producing.
Well, you bring up some really good points that folks don't necessarily think about. A lot of builders build the cheapest they can. They value engineer. They put in the cheaper appliances, those low-end water heaters, because they're just selling the house to someone who's going to live in it. And then, 5 years, 10 years, they have to replace the water heater. People are kind of used to that. A landlord doesn't want to be bothered. You don't want to disrupt the tenants. You don't want to have to come up with the money to do that. Better to do that at the front end. And because you guys buy in bulk, you don't have the situation where you're nickel and diming and upgrading for this and upgrading for that. It kind of just comes, turnkey, if you will. And that saves both money for the investor in the long term, but also the tenants. And that's a point. If you're a tenant, would you rather, rent a 40-year-old house or a brand new house? And the fact that they stay longer is a testament to that. I think, Gene, let's talk about the markets you guys are in a little bit. And by the way, Wagner and Gene put out some great information. You can go ahead and get signed up to get on their list, because they keep me, I know, and all of their folks up to speed with what's happening in the marketplace. Super valuable. And of course, you'll get their contact information if you want to have a conversation. But Gene, we talk about cheap and cheerful Florida, and you were kind of the central Florida market, but talk about the neighborhoods that you guys have selected. You talked about going to where people want to rent. Just highlight some of those areas that you guys are focused on right now.
Well, I would say that our houses in Palm Bay are the only houses you would live in. They are really nice houses. They're 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. We have 2 different models going in there, and they're all infill lots. Now, I've been doing this a long time with engineers from California and all over the United States. And normally it's a very long explanation, many, many calls, and then they finally feel comfortable. Not with Palm Bay. I'll say to them, well, it's Space Coast, over 400 new companies. And they go, say no more. I'll go on Northrop Grumman, I'll go on Siemens, I'll go on Lockheed Martin, I'll go on SpaceX, I'll go on all these sites and I can see what the jobs are. Well over $112,000 a year, which is for Florida big, right? Remember, we have no state income tax. So they see it, they buy it easily. So we have two different models there. Those houses will appraise now today for 245 to 250. The houses that we're building now are not going to be done till now, May, June, July, the new ones, September, October, they're in there, okay? And they probably will appraise for even more. And the price is 225 complete. So right now, people are closing that actually signed up for these houses 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, for 210, and they're getting appraised for 250. That's not a bad way to start. And I always say to people, you make your money on the buy, not on the sale, on the buy. So that's Palm Bay. And I can honestly say, I've had two houses there that I had to give away because somebody was doing a 1031 exchange. I will have half a dozen houses there eventually, somewhere in that area. Palm Bay is in Space Coast. You should take a look at it. Very, very interesting. We only do infill lots there. So there's HOA. They're very well built and you'll like them all. And Wagner has told you how they're built. The other place that I really like is Ocala, and it's really not Ocala. There's three different areas there. Actually, there are even three different subgroups there. So why do we like that area? First of all, we have the villages. The villages have right now over 300,000 people there. And they have to, if you live in the villages, 55 or over. So there's people that want to be a school teacher or people that work in the assisted living or in the hospitals or getting their hair done or getting their car done or taking care of everybody has a golf cart and everybody has a house and everybody has lawn. So there's an amazing amount of jobs there, okay? So that's number one. If they don't want to work there, off of, the other area, Marion Oaks is right off of 75. You can be working at many of the logistics companies there. There's Chewy Foods, Chewy Dog Foods, there's Auto Nation. There's all of those big companies there too. And of course, Amazon is there. And also there is a Northrop Grumman. There's lots and lots and lots of jobs. So that area, we have three different models right now. And one is 159.9. Now, what do you think you get for 159.9? You're going to get a quarter of an acre, more or less, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 1 car garage. Now, the gentleman that's doing that does a little bit of a cathedral thing. You're going to get hard surface floors. You're going to get granite countertops. You're going to get a smart house. It's amazing.
Wow.
And the price on those right now are about $12.99. 160 with $12.99 rent. Think of that one, okay? And when you put it out there, they rent very quickly. Even in November, I had one that I closed on about, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and it's rented already. And another gentleman in Palm Bay, he closed on the 6th of November and it, had a renter on the 9th. So when you think of that, I would always say to people, and you know that I say that, Robert, to everybody, don't buy a house and close in November, December, February, March. Wait till after April 15th. All bets are off now. People are moving now. They're not staying in a place they can't work, that they can't go out, their kids can't go to school. They're making the switch. So that's very, very important. I bought 7 houses there because it was easier for me to get them than in Palm Bay. And I can honestly say, let me just give you a little bit of the math on this. You buy a house for $170,000, right? I put down 25% because then I got a 3.12 mortgage, 30-year fixed. I'll be 104 years old. Okay? They gave it to me anyway, and it'll be great for my grandkids. So I put that down. Closing costs were literally nothing because there's not much going on there. And my out-of-pocket if it's a big $800, it's probably a little bit less. And I'm getting 1400, 1475 rent, almost 1500. So do the math. That's amazing. It's just amazing. So cash on cash, that little thing was like about 20%. That's what's all about. A great
Yeah. Well, and the great thing about brand new is about the worst performance it has is at the beginning. And it usually gets better because you do usually benefit from appreciation when you buy brand new. There's built-in equity, as Wagner addressed, and the fact that you're not going to have those maintenance costs. I love the fact that insurance is less. Most people don't even think about that. They buy a used house, and nothing wrong with that. Lots of people buy
Right.
used properties. You can only buy a new property one time. But if your thinking is, I'm going to hold on to this, like you've said, Gene, I'm going to hang on, I'm going to give it to my grandkids, right? I want this to be in my family kind of forever. Well, then why not get that head start on the newness of it? And Wagner, I know that you've got certainly, older properties, but the nice thing about looking at the market that you are, and Gene, you mentioned infill a couple times, and just no investor left behind. In case you don't know, that just means that rather than build attractive homes where they're all brand new next to each other, these are lots that are kind of individual lots. Sometimes there's a few in the neighborhood. And Wagner, talk about building that way, because I know you've mentioned economies of scale and efficiency, which are critical. You have that in buying in bulk. But what about building? Is it harder to build infill than it is if they were just right on the same street?
It is much harder, Robert. And really, why we do it is really to bring the value to the investor because that house is going to be appreciated more. You're going to have a ratio of homeowners on that street in that neighborhood that is much higher than a whole development community that it's made for rental purposes only. And of course, appreciation. Your appreciation is going to be much higher. So the planning, the purchasing of the lots needs to be very well planned. Also, because as you know, real estate, you're only as good as your last sale or job. So you look at the last sale and the price only tends to go up from there. So securing those lots early enough when you have all the economical drivers in the study is the key of the success. If you don't buy, you don't secure enough lots in an area, you're probably just going to run out of your price range and it's not going to make any more cash flow. It doesn't make sense. So when we go into a new area, we can buy anything between 50, 100 to 150 lots and just hold on to them. We schedule closings very near to each other so we don't actually inflate the market prior of us purchasing them. Once we purchase and we pull the trigger on all those lots, you know what happens after that. All the prices skyrocket. The good thing is this, we work within a radius. So on the economy of scale, that still makes a lot of sense. As you well know, all of our listeners know and your buyers, we only build concrete block. So when the big trucks come over, they distribute the concrete block according to the lots that we have in a region. We also do hip roofing, which actually saves a lot of money and deflects wind on the insurance. So all of those we build on non-flood zones, very important, non-flood zones. But the good thing is it harder? Yes, it is much harder for us. Does it cost more? Yes, it does. It requires much more planning. It's much harder to get the permits sometimes because we have to apply them individually. Instead of a planned community, you apply for a master plan and then you just copy and paste. So we have a lot of barriers that for a single investor will be much harder to acquire a home made for an investor in an infill lot than actually in a planned development community that is made for rent. But I can guarantee you that it makes much more sense. Tenants absolutely love having a homeowner which takes great care of his house next door to him. Also, the properties, they tend to look better for longer because if you have a planned community that it's actually planned only for rental, people don't take much great care of it as much as a homeowner would. So the look of the house, the neighborhood itself, it tends to be much better in an infill lot.
It's such a great point. We see it in condominiums, the same thing. You as an investor, I want to be in a neighborhood that mostly isn't other investors for the reasons you said. But it also brings up another point, which is with single family homes, and maybe it's really the only space in real estate that this works. You've got some multiple exit strategies. One being you've owned it as a landlord, you've got a tenant. You might sell it to that tenant eventually, right? That's
Mhm.
a potential exit strategy. But also, it might be that when you're ready to sell, there's great demand just on the resale market. So rather than have to find another investor, you can sell it to an owner occupant. So the houses are built in such a way that no one's going to walk in one of your houses and go, oh, yeah, this is a tenant house. It's a beautiful house that even an owner would like.
Absolutely correct. I think that's what makes us very unique is we build the best as we believe should be the products in the markets available, not only for durability, but for looks. And once that tenant comes into that house and they take their first shower, brand new bathroom, brand new tub, they cook their first meal, brand new kitchen, brand new appliances, it makes them have a sense of ownership on that house. That is priceless. That's why they stay for so long. The second thing is a homeowner would appreciate as much as a tenant would. Once they come into the house, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, if you decide to sell your property, you're probably going to have a lot of appreciation. And your house is pretty much new. It's a 4 or 5 year old house at a time, 10 if you decide to. The way we build those houses are pretty much bulletproof. They're going to be here for a long time. Concrete block, concrete slabs, non-flood zone, hip roofing. I mean, we go above and beyond. So we really wanted to have those houses in 30 years. They probably look a little outdated, but if you maintain them properly, they can hold their value and still make you a lot of money in cash flow.
Well, and not everybody holds the house forever. You know, Gene, you mentioned that things like the roof wear out after 16, 18, 20 years. So certainly there is, you know, the hold strategy to, I'm going to buy some new houses and sell in 8 or 10 years. Can you speak to that, Gene? Do you have to keep the house forever?
No, absolutely not. I think the average one keeps it about 5 or 6 years. And I only say the ones I'm buying in Ocala, I am buying for my grandkids.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen to them. They're 8 and 11, and who knows what this country is going to, do. So it'll be nice for them that they won't have to worry. And I mean, they don't know about it, but I know about it. Yeah, I'll say that, people buying in Palm Bay, they already have $35,000-$40,000 worth of equity. And continuing on, if you have one now, it's 225, and we don't go over 225 really for an investment property. It just doesn't work.
Yep.
But the rents are going up, which is really helping everything. And when people are coming up from up north and they were living somewhere and paying fantastic rents for nothing, and they come here and they see this house, they think they died and went to heaven. I mean, really, they're brand new houses, and it's a nice feeling in COVID to have your own space and you're the only one that's touched it. And I will say that I believe that the ones in Palm Bay, 5-6 years, they have to be, 275, maybe even 300. So at that time, you might want to pull your money out and buy something else, depending on where we are in the market. It might be a time that you're going to go back and buy in a different area that, really went through a disaster of people moving out. Or maybe you'll just stay in Florida. We don't know what's going to happen. We were the fourth largest state a few years back, not that long ago, maybe 3 years back. And then we superseded New York. Well, now we really are superseding New York. And I can imagine that some of other states are also, adding to their population. But there's a reason, there's a reason why people come everywhere. And it's usually jobs and housing. And I will speak to the fact that when I talk to people, they'll say, well, and remember, this is really important. This is investment 101. If you have a wife, a husband, a partner, do not put two people on the same mortgage. Number one, you can have 10 Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac mortgages, and they can have 10. So now you got 20, right?
Right.
Now that's so important. And when the crunch came back in 2008, 9, I had told that to even people, friends of mine that were buying, owner occupied, and they listened to me. So what they did, a lot of them was, well, they wanted to move up. So they went and bought a bank house that was, a short sale. And then they got rid of their other house, but they didn't lose their credit rating. Somebody keeps the credit rating. You got to do that, number one. And number two, if you buy, normally people go, well, what about a duplex or a quad? Or, I only have one or two more loans left. Well, that's great, except as we're saying, maybe it's not so great because you can only sell a duplex or a quad to another investor, or maybe somebody that wants to own half and live in the other half, but you're limiting who you can sell it to. The appreciation in single family houses is always greater than a duplex and a quad. It just is. So if you're looking for appreciation and cash flow, this is probably one of the few times I can say we have it. People used to say, well, what about that one-on-one thing, like $1 for, and I'm like, yeah, I could never do that. Ever, ever, ever be. Now, yes. And so that's why I say, well, you can pay $380 for a duplex, or you can buy 2 single family homes for $160. You got to think of that. And also you won't have a second job. Now, a lot of people ask me about property management, about short-term rentals. And I always say to them, single family homes, if you're a busy person and you have a family, or you're running a company or whatever, just buy single family homes and buy new ones. And then you'll have less problems. If you want another job, then think about going into the short-term rental situation. Florida is probably the biggest area here, and we have them. We like them. I have two of them, and that they're just a little bit more work. And so a lot of people I talk to are having enough problems just keeping their job going, they're keeping their business going, keeping their families going right now. And this is perfect time for the single family home.
Well, I think that's a great point. Plus, for a lot of folks that follow the real estate guys, they're just getting into real estate investing. They might own a property or two. This is the kind of thing you can add to your portfolio. We can't say risk-free, but the risk is mitigated a lot. One, the jobs market. Every place in the world has people moving in and moving out. And we always look for places where there's more people moving in than moving out. And that is just the story of Florida for lots of reasons. Some of the people that are going to work on the Space Coast, well, they could probably at $112,000 afford to buy a house, but they're only there for a 2-year contract. So it probably doesn't make sense for them. So they're going to be, good income, good credit, nice folks, take care of the property. They just aren't in a position to buy, which gives you the upper hand as a landlord. You're going to provide that great housing for them. And as you look at the market and the strength in the market and more people coming, Florida's weathered COVID pretty well, despite the fact that obviously the theme parks and things, that's changed, but that's transient business. That would affect your vacation rental, but not the rental that's a brand new house that the engineer at the local place is rented. So I think it's a solid, stable market. It's got a long history. You guys have been there a long time. So certainly learned a lot today. Thank you both. And not only for our time today, but for the great information that you guys put out. I'll tell you what, if you get on the Realty Doctors list, you could do that real easy, just as it says on the screen here. What you'll get is they will send you out these market updates, which are very informative, talk about what's going on in the market, the big drivers and so forth. And if you decide that maybe build to rent sounds good, you can schedule a one-on-one consultation. I will tell you, our listeners rave about you guys. Gene has been in the business forever and has done so many transactions and has a real understanding of investors. And Wagner, of course, not only have you gone through flipping 400 houses, but now managing 9 different builders, building new stuff, and yet you guys make time to talk to our listeners. So we really appreciate that. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. We're very, very honored and very pleased to be here. I keep telling you this every time. I really believe the real estate guys are the best source of information for real estate investing in the country. Anything as far as real assets are concerned, I'm one of your listeners. I truly believe that what you preach and what your listeners are following on your footsteps, leading by example, is simply amazing. So thank you again, you and Russ. You guys are simply amazing. It's always an honor to be here.
Thank you for those kind words. And if you're interested in build to rent, and why wouldn't you be, then reach out to Gene and Wagner and stay tuned for the next in our series of build to rent. In the meantime, I'll look forward to seeing you on the radio.
Before you go, 3 things. Number 1, subscribe. When you subscribe, you build up our subscription base, and that helps us reach more people. But even more important, it helps us attract great guests and subject matter experts to share their ideas and information with you. Number 2, click that notification bell to make sure that when we do post a new video on this hot topic, you're notified right away. And number 3, share. Please share this information with friends. Help them get on board this bus. Help them protect and preserve their wealth to take advantage of what's going on in the world today. All right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.